Hello Steelers, and welcome to this very special video and battle report of General d'Armée 2. Why is it very special? Well, a couple of reasons really. One, I've just wanted to be making this for a long time, since I actually bought General d'Armée ages ago when it first came out. I've played a couple of games of it since, down at the club. I've only about three games, but I've been wanting to play it for a long time, since I've been painting my Warlord epic figures, and I just never had enough really to actually make, you know, a decent stab at it. I could have halved the battalions, which was suggested to me by Dave Brown, but I kind of wanted to have that 4 base battalion, so I've been painting those figures up for almost a year at this point, with anticipation of actually playing this. And as I say, I've been very much looking forward to playing the game. I played it a few times down at the club. First one was a learning game, second one was a little better, still didn't really know what I was doing, and then the third one was a much better game with Gary, who actually knew what he was doing, so he just made the game go a lot quicker. But it was great, and I realised how much of a good fun game it was. I also then went to play a solo game of it myself afterwards. So basically I've set up a fictional battle, 1815, similar to Waterloo. It's got a farmhouse, it's got a few woods on either side. You know, it's basically a pretty simple battle. I'm trying to make it as simple as possible in general as well. I'm just keeping it to infantry at the moment, simply because cavalry just do add that little extra bit of layer of complexity. So there's no cavalry in this one, so that's one caveat. And the second caveat is that I haven't played this very often. As I say, I've had about 4 games of it. I have read through the rules a couple of times. I am going to make mistakes, so you know, don't worry about pointing it out in the comments, because I probably wouldn't have picked it up whilst I'm doing the editing anyway. There's lots of tiny nuances within these rules, so I'm fairly sure that I'm going to make mistakes here and there. The third caveat is I'm also playing it solo as well, so I want to keep the fog of war of the deployment at the start. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of go through a little bit of a system that I've made up for this specific reason, really, for using solo rules. So what I'll do is I'll show you the figures, the units that are involved, and then from there we can move on to actually deployment and that fog of war that I talked about. Right, so hope you enjoy this, and let's get going. So here we have our forces. Here are the British and Allies, and then on the other side we got the French over here. So these are then broken into 3 brigades, so 1, 2 and 3 for the British, and then 1, 2, 3 for the French. As you can see, apart from Brigade 1, there everybody is made up of 3 battalions. What I've also done as well is I put in a veteran unit here for the French. They're not elites, they are the Guard, but they're going to be veterans for this game. Everybody else is going to be line, apart from these guys over here for the British, who are light as well. So I know I've got a Guards unit for the British in here, but I'm just using them as line for this particular game. So Crimea River. They've also used as well the 95th, formed 95th for the skirmishers for the British, so they've got their skirmish lines here. And then obviously the voltigeurs for the French. Here's our CNC. We've also got caissons as well kicking about. I've got the limbers for the British. There's the CNC for the British. I've also got artillery attached as well to a couple of brigades. So this one here, and then number 3 here as well over here. So I've numbered the British brigades 1, 2 and 3 because what I've done is I've laid out 4 spots where they may deploy. Because I'm doing it solo, I'm basically going to roll a dice to see which one deploys in there if that area is scouted. One of them is going to be a dummy. It's going to be very simple to do. Basically I roll a d6, if I roll a 1, 2 or a 3, that brigade is then deployed on that point if it's been scouted. However, if I roll a 4, it's a dummy, and if it's been scouted, it's taken away. Then what I will do is I will switch the, if I roll a 5 or a 6 on that first roll, I'll just ignore it. If I if they scout another position and it's another brigade, it's not the dummy, or it is the dummy, I will roll a dice and then it'll be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's a relatively simple way of doing things. It's going to add a little bit of friction and fog of war to the British deployment, but that's just because they've probably just turned up at the battle slightly later than their French counterparts, and the French have begun their attack earlier. Right, so I'll show you the table and then we'll go through that scouting part of the game. So here is our table looking from the French point of view. We've got this strong point here in the centre, which is going to be pivotal to the battle. We've also got a couple of woods on either side of the table just to kind of block it in a little bit. Some fields which aren't really going to cause much movement issues for the units. So quite a basic battle. The British have deployed, or at least they put their deployment dice over here. So we've got 1, 2, 3 and 4 there. So what we're going to try and do now is the French are going to try to scout. They've got 3 chances to scout, and they're going to try to scout some of these to see if they're dummies or not. So we're going to roll the dice. The French are blue, the British are red, of course. Now, to outscout their opponents, the French must roll higher than the British. If the British have tie with them or roll higher, then the French are being outscouted. They don't deploy. So first of all, the French are going to try to scout number 2 here. As I say, we have 3 attempts at this. So the first one is a 2 and a 2. So that is a tie. So the British have outscouted the French, so they don't get to deploy anything there. Second one is we're going to do the same one here again in this center, because this is obviously dominating this high ground and the position itself. So let's have a look, and same again, it's a tie for tie. So their third attempt is going to be to try and scout it once more. So let's have a look, and this time the French have actually outscouted the British, so they've got a 3 against that 2. So this is position number 2. So what we're going to try to do now is to work out which actual British unit is going to be here. So this is the only, unfortunately the French haven't outscouted their opponents, so they don't get that extra move forward at the start of the game. They would have done if they'd scouted 2 of the positions. So what we're going to do is we're going to roll the dice, and then this will tie. If it's a 5 or a 6, I'll re-roll it. If it's a 1, 2 or a 3, it's going to be one of the brigades, and then I will set those up. If it's a 4, then it is actually a dummy. So let's see what we get. It's a 1, so it's brigade number 1. So what I'll do is I'll get these set up on the table, then the French will deploy, and then the British will deploy the rest of their units. Right, I have sorted out the deployments. This was the brigade that was spotted by the French here, so they deployed on the hill as a support with a skirmish screen right down the front here, and then they have garrisoned the strong point with, it's not a strong point, sorry, the garrison with one set of 1 battalion there. The British also then, well, the French in response to that have basically just set up along the back. As I said, they were unable to scout forward, so they were basically setting up at 20 centimetres. They potentially could have pushed one brigade forward had they outscouted the British. They put their guns in the centre to try to dominate the strong point itself, and they're just going to be trying to push forward basically. We've got our CNC back here. I forgot to mention that these guys, the brigadiers, are all just going to be campaigners, just to make things easier. I don't want to add too much special sauce at this point, as I said. Too much to remember at this point anyway. Meanwhile, the British then deployed after the French, so they put one of their brigades over here. They've got 1 unit on the hill, 1 in support, with another one down here, and then also the guns over here to dominate the central part of the battlefield. Their skirmishers out front, CNC as you can see at the back, and then they also have their 3rd brigade sitting here. So they've got the light guys, light bobs over here on their extreme left flank, because obviously just covering this hill, the woods. It's not likely the French are going to come through there. And then they've also got a unit in reserve at the back as well, just in case that front line starts to waver. And that's kind of what I've done as well here with these guys. These can move down to support this garrison as it takes hits, which I'm sure it will. Okay, let's now move on to the command phase. So for our first phase, we're rolling for our aide-de-camps. So let's see, we got there's 4 of each. We basically roll dice, and if we get a 1 or a 2, they don't get the aide-de-camp. If they get a 3 up, they get the aide-de-camp, and they've got potential of getting 4 each. Obviously blue for French, red for British. So let's just pull these together. So the British they've scored a 1 there, and so they only get 3. If they'd got a double 6, they would have also got an extra aide-de-camp. The French on the other hand have scored a 3, 4, 4, 4 and a 5. So the French get all of theirs, whilst the British only get 3 of theirs. So there's the British ones, and then French ones as well. Right, I probably won't go through this in every turn, but just because it's the first turn, just to show you basically what I've done here. For the British, they used up 2 of their ADCs to have an artillery assault over here. to make their guns a bit better. Then they also had a brigade re-roll here as well, just to make sure that those guns will potentially fire. So that's theirs. Over here, the French have just given a brigade re-roll over here to this one on the left flank. So I want to get that moving forward. They've also given a brigade re-roll for the middle flank, the middle unit, but they've also given it a forwards as well. So basically that means it moves an extra 10 centimeters plus 2d6 centimeters as well, so trying to get it up to that point as quick as they can. So now what we do is we go through each one of the brigades and we roll for them in turn to see if they are hesitant or not, and then we roll for initiative. First of all, I'm going to start with the French, starting from the left onwards. So the first one or a 2, and they are actually hesitant. So let's see what they get. First one, they are not hesitant, so they don't need the brigade re-roll anymore, so I'll get rid of that. Second one, these have a brigade re-roll, so see, 1 or a 2, yes, they are hesitant, however they've got the brigade re-roll, so they're going to use it. They need anything but a 1 or a 2. 4, they've done it, so they will crack on with that, so that's good. So that was theirs used up. And then the final one, same again, 1 or a 2, they are not hesitant either. Starting with the British. Now I'm working this way, my left to my right, so I'm going to start with the first one. These have a brigade re-roll. They'll need it just in case, because they've got the artillery assault as well. So first up, 1. So they're going to use their brigade re-roll, so let's get that going. It's a 2, so they are still hesitant. So unfortunately for them, what that means is they are hesitant. The artillery assault comes off, as does that re-roll as well. So they now can only do various things in the turn. They can only fire ahead, they can't move towards the enemy, etc. Annoyingly, it loses them that artillery assault which they needed. The middle guys here, let's see what they are. 4, they're okay, they passed orders. And then the last one over there, 4, they are okay as well, they have passed orders. Right, so now we go on to the initiative. Everybody starts with a dice pool of 2 dice. So we've got French and the British, obviously they're in red and blue. For every hesitant unit, every hesitant brigade that you have, every hesitant brigade you have, you add a dice. So in this case, the British have got 1, and then you roll the dice and you take the 2 lowest scores. So let's see what we get. So the British have scored a 5, a 6, and a 1. So they take their lowest, which gives them a 6 for the initiative. The French, on the other hand, have got a 5. So the British actually have the initiative, so they become the phasing player in the first phase of anything. So unsurprisingly, the British haven't moved because they were already in position anyway. The French have basically moved their entire line across. The one that's interesting and important is this central brigade here. They have the forwards tasking, so they're going to move an extra, they move 15 centimetres, they're going to move an extra 10 centimetres plus 2d6. That's probably going to get them quite far forward. They've also brought up their artillery. The artillery are not going to use the forwards tasking because it precludes them from firing if they did, but they can move and fire otherwise. But apart from that, they'd have to basically change it formation into being limbered, and they don't want to do that because they probably want to fire. So I just wanted to get them that a bit further forward. Right, so let's just see. We roll our dice and then add that to 10 centimetres. So we got 5, so that's another 15 centimetres that these chaps can move. So that brings them up to here. Pretty much. I'm just moving the skirmishers forward as well. Keep the skirmish can move faster if they want, but I'm just bringing them up to the same speed basically. And as I said, I'm going to leave those artillery behind. Kind of wanted the artillery to pound away at that garrison before we went in, but they can still fire to the left of them instead. So these bring up the rest of the attackers. So they've managed to get almost halfway across the table just by using those 2 ADCs. So very useful. I will get rid of those ADCs because we've now spent that. Actually, I'll keep it on just to remind me that they are under a forwards tasking, so they can no longer do any firing. So we've done the moves, now we're moving on to the skirmish fire. The only skirmish fire that can happen are the British skirmishers here in front of the farmhouse and the French skirmishers firing at them. This is very simple. The British again have got the initiative, so they are rolling first. You take 1 skirmish casualty dice per base, so there's 3 of them firing plus an extra 1. They roll the dice, they need 4s up, any 4-up are hits. However, skirmishers only actually hit if they score 2 or more hits. That makes sense. So let's see. We have scored 3 hits. So they got a 1, 4, 5 and a 6. So that is actually only 1 hit on those French skirmishers. So I'll just put a marker down there. Once they've taken 3 hits, you'll remove a base, so that will quickly turn over. The French will now return. Actually, the French can't return fire because they use the forwards tasking. So they moved. So they move forward, so they can't return fire. So that's the infantry firing for this turn. So now we move on to artillery fire. The British artillery over here were part of this hesitant brigade over here, so they can't actually fire at over long range. Everything is just over 40 centimeters away, so they can't actually hit anything anyway. So we ignore that. We're going to move on to the French over here, and they are firing at the skirmishers over here at long range. This is going to be pretty poor, but at least they might get something. So basically this is inferior battery fire. We roll 2 dice. They don't get any bonuses for this. Literally double 1. That's not good. That is FC. FC is actually fatigue casualties on the firer themselves. So they're running down on guns, so they've taken a casualty themselves. Silly lads. So there was no more firing, there was no charges or anything left to do in that turn, so I'm going to go straight on to turn 2. I forgot to mention this is going to be a 12-turn game, so we're on turn 2 now. So it's command and initiative first of all. We're rolling for our ADCs immediately. Let's just see what we get. So the British have only got 2, the French have got 3 in that case. Let me just stick those to one side so I remember. Then I'm going to distribute those amongst the where they're needed, and then we'll roll for initiative. Okay, I have distributed those ADCs. I'll just quickly show you what we've got. The 2 British ones have gone on artillery assault over here. They're hoping that they will pass their brigade hesitancy test this time, and they don't have any others, so that's it. The French, they've given a brigade re-roll over here just in case to try to push this left forward. Meanwhile, they've also given out a brigade re-roll here and an infantry assault as well to try and charge into this place here. It basically gives them a little bit extra, and also they can drag a couple of units with them as well. Right, so let's see who's hesitant and who isn't. So the first one over here on our left, let's get a rice roll. It's a 2. They are hesitant. They have a brigade re-roll, which they will re-roll. 5, they are no longer hesitant, so let's use that up. The middle one, the important one, same again. They have a brigade re-roll if they need it. 4, they didn't need it, so I'll just take that brigade re-roll off anyway. And then finally on their right flank, the last one, 4, they are also unhesitant as well. Right, now the British, the important one over here, they need anything but a 1 or a 2, so a 4, so that's okay, so they're not hesitant. Then we need the centre one. They don't want to be hesitant either, really. They didn't have a re-roll, so I'll just stick that on there just to remind me. And then finally on their left flank they have an unhesitant unit, so they only have 1 that is hesitant in the centre, which is the one that is about to be attacked. Right, okay. So the British now are rolling 3 dice for their initiative. The French are rolling 2. So we roll these and take the lowest scores. French in this case have got 4. The British in this case have got a 3. They did have a 5, but they take the lowest, which is a 3 there. So the French will win the initiative, so they get to move or do anything first, and they are going to declare their charge, and obviously they're going to declare a charge over here. So we'll go through that process. Okay, so I'm not 100% sure about this, but I think this is how it goes for charging villagers. Basically, I move up as the attacker here. I'll say the French will attack into this side of the village using this unit here as their main one. They're within 20 centimeters. They're going to push through their skirmishers who will fall behind them. They will also push the British skirmishers out of the way, so I'm just going to move those first of all. They will fall back to maybe around about here, I think, just to keep out of the way. The French skirmishers, let's send some of them over this way here, I think. Let's keep following up, and then the other ones can come round this way, around here. Then, as I say, we're moving these up. They would normally move 15, but they're getting an extra 5 centimeters, so that's going to be enough to get them into combat or into close combat. So basically, normally in a charge you would stop 5 centimeters away from the target. Just move everybody up with them, and then also these guys are coming in as support as well because they've got the infantry assault. So then we get to this point, then we would normally resolve how the charge would come. So basically these potentially may move away. It may not even go into actual combat. In this case, because these are garrisoned in here, it will go into combat, but the defenders in there will get a chance to fire out. So we just need to do that fire now, and that's pretty much done as a skirmish fire. So basically they will fire immediately with their skirmish fire because they're firing out to the garrison. So they're only rolling 5 dice. They get no bonuses or no minuses for this, and they're just firing at the unit that's coming in. They need 4s up because they're firing as a skirmish unit basically. So they've actually scored 2 hits there because they've got 4 successes. So that's 2 hits on the attacking unit immediately. So they will then take that. On that battalion, they will then move in and close up, ready for combat, which will come at the end of the phase, and then we move on to normal movements and all the other things as well. Now, as I say, not 100% sure this is how it works with garrisons, but let's just go with it for now, shall we? So basically I've just moved the French units further forward. That's all. There's not much point showing you where they are. They kind of just move slightly forward. The only firing we've got again is the skirmishers over here. So we've got the French attacking first of all. They're starting with 2 dice, gives them an extra 1 dice, and again we're looking for those hits on there. Actually that's 3 hits. Now they've got a double 6 there. That double 6 would have counted if they got the skirmisher tasking on them. They don't, so it has only caused 1 hit on the British skirmishers, which is unfortunate for them. So there's that 1 hit. Then the British will return fire. They have 3 and 1 extra dice, so 3 dice, 3 bases and 1 extra dice, firing at those French again. They have only hits with 2, but that has caused another hit on the French there, so that's useful at least. Right, so we now go on to the artillery firing. So with skirmisher fire done, we now move on to the artillery fire. So we're starting with the British artillery over here, the French artillery down here. These are firing at the Scots infantry over here, the Scottish infantry. You can fire through enemy skirmishers, so that's what they're doing, unless they're specifically targeting them, which they're not because they're using shot. They are at long range, so it's going to be inferior fire battery, so we'll just roll our dice, see what we get. They've got an 8 this time, so that is just 1 casualty on those Scots. Then we have the British artillery. They're actually using artillery assault, which I'd forgotten about, so they actually get an extra shot on top of that. So they get 2 casualty dice as well as this, so they get a normal red dice and 2 casualty dice as well. But they are once again they're using inferior fire modifiers because they're at long range, firing at this central unit here. So the casualty dice, they need to be 4s up, but that's a 1 and a 2, so that's nothing for them. And they've got an 8 on their inferior fire, which is a hit on the middle French unit here. Okay, so we're attacking with the French. They're attacking into a village. In the first round, they only use 4. They goes from 5 dice down to 1, down by 1, so go down to 4. The British in the garrison are holding on with 5 dice. We need 4s up on these, and then we consult how many hits we have against each other. So it's like the difference of how many hits there are. Each hit on a 4 up causes a casualty. So let's just see what we get. So the British have caused 1, 2, 3 casualties. The French on the other hand have caused 1, 2, 3 casualties on the British. So let's put those on there, so while I remember anyway. So the British have taken 3 hits, the French have also taken 3, so that gives them 4. They are not yet, they need 6 or more casualties to start them getting desultory effects and things. So they're okay at the moment. They're getting a bit worn. Right, so what happens there is it is a draw. So what this is infantry versus garrison. It's in the first round. They fight on. Both units become unformed and undertake the fight on procedure. So we'll put unformed on there, and the lads over here are also unformed as well. So what we have to do is, normally in a game, because this is I'm playing solo, but normally in a game you would decide whether you actually fight on. You either withdraw, you do a fighting withdrawal, or you stand and reinforce. And these are all slightly different. Now what I'm going to do is, you put a dice down, you hide it from your opponent, and they decide. I'm going to allow the dice to decide for me what happens here. So this will decide what happens in this next round of combat. So we'll roll for these. So the French have got a 6, the British have got a 4. So the British 4 is called a fighting withdrawal. The original unit fights the second round whilst conducting a fighting withdrawal. In garrison combat, if an infantry opponent ordered stand and reinforce but lost the combat, they may still occupy a village with that battalion. Meanwhile, the French have stand and reinforce. The original unit continues to fight in the second round. It may be reinforced with a supporting unit within reach. If no units are able to reinforce, the original unit fights on alone. So we are reinforcing over here. I'm going to shove those out of the way, and then these guys are going to come in and attack on this position here. So we now have reinforcements piling in as well, so we're now swarming it because they were in a position to reinforce, which is the good reason to use that infantry assault tasking, wasn't it, basically? Right, so we then attack again. Okay, so once again, tell me in the comments if I've got this wrong, but the way I work it out is they basically fight against the single individual unit. They're attacking one individual unit in that garrison. So the garrison itself is unformed, so it goes from 5 dice down to 4, whereas the French, they have one unit attacking unformed. They would have been 5 dice because it's the second round of combat, not the first, but because they are unformed, it goes down to 1. And then we've got another French unit attacking, but because it's their first round of combat, they will only roll 4 dice as well. So we're doing the same again, so it's basically 8 against 4. They don't have more than double the opponent's dice, they just have double the opponent's dice. But let's have a look. That's the French dice, of course. Right, wow, that's a lot. Right, so we've got 1, 2, 3 hits from the British. Meanwhile we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hits from the French. So that takes the British casualties straight up to 11. The French, they will divide those between them, so they are going to take at least 1, I would have said, and then probably put 2 on the other brigade as well. So that is a win by +2. Infantry versus garrison. The winner takes the ground, they are unformed, and the losers retreat. So I'll get those British pushed out. That's the way to do it, I guess. Smash them out of there. Right, after that little bit of brutality, let's see where we're at. So what I've done is I've moved in the French unit that attacked from the right flank. They are now unformed, but they are now garrisoned. The other unit is still unformed, and they're sitting out the back of it. They had to stay in contact with the garrison, the first one that went in. They had fewer casualties, so I thought they'd be better off going in there. Meanwhile, our British unit, they fell back. Because they were coming out of a garrison, they didn't affect the unit behind them, but they have stopped just behind the unit. They've still taken 11 casualties, so they're almost dispersed at this point. So if the French can actually get some more casualties on them, then that might start causing chaos in this centre part here. The British aren't very well reinforced in this centre, but we'll see what happens. That is the end of that turn. That takes the end of turn 2, so we're now moving on to turn 3. Right, so we are back at the ADC point here, so let's just see how many we get of each. So the British have taken 3, the French, unfortunately for them, have only got 2. Okay, I've given out my ADC orders, tasking should I say, so we've got the forwards tasking for these guys over here, that cost the French all of theirs. Meanwhile, these chaps have given a brigade reroll over here, and also artillery assault over here as well. Hopefully the rest of these are just going to form up before they do anything else anyway. So let's check for our brigades and see how good they are. Right, first one, French one, this is the one they won. If it's 1 or a 2, it's a 1 or a 2, so we remove the forwards, they become hesitant. And our second brigade, the one that push forward, they have got a 3, so they're not hesitant. And then our final brigade here on the right, they have got a 5, so they are also fine. So just where they didn't need it. Now these chaps over here, the British, so they've got a brigade re-roll over here. We'll roll that. 3, they're fine, they didn't need it. The middle unit, they don't really, it doesn't matter so much if these are hesitant, they're fine anyway. And then the final unit over there, and they're fine as well. So only 1 hesitant brigade. So let me just quickly roll for initiative. This is going to be slightly different though. The French start with the 2, they get 1 for their hesitant brigade. Meanwhile, the British start with 2, but they have also lost their strategic point here as well, or the tactical point, can't remember the name of it, so they get 3 dice. So we roll these and take the lowest. So the British have rolled a 3, the French have rolled a 6, so the French have retained the initiative. Let me just give you a quick overview of what has happened this turn. There has been no charges declared, everybody's kind of licking their wounds. These obviously are hesitant, they just sent forward their skirmisher screen. The fellas over here who are unformed have now reformed, as has the British unit at the back there. They have reformed. The French unit has pushed forward, but the British are just sitting on the hill just waiting for them to come forward in the same old way. So we're going to go straight over to the artillery fire, and we're starting with the French. So first up we've got our French. They're firing at the Scots over there, so basically this is going to be inferior battery fire. Let's just see what they get. They've got a 6 on that. That is no effect, unfortunately for them. Meanwhile, the British are going to be firing back, but they've got artillery assault. They're firing at these ones over here. These are at effective range, so they're starting with their 2d6. They get an extra 2d6 casualty dice for their artillery assault. They are effective range, so it's a column target, so they get another dice for that. Another casualty dice, and they've got then, so that's basically it's just normal fire, so standard battery fire. So we're looking at 4s up on the black dice, and then, well, they've got 4 for their standard fire, so that takes a fatigue casualty on themselves, but they have actually caused 3 hits there on that, so that has caused 3 hits on those, but taken a hit themselves. I did forget a skirmish fire. I could have done this from these ones here in the garrison, firing at the skirmishers behind and vice versa. So I'm going to do that very quickly now. So they're basically starting, the French are starting with 5 casualty dice, and that's it. So they're looking at 4s up to hit. They've hit with 4 of them, so that is 2 hits on those skirmishers. So that does actually remove a base of those skirmishers. The skirmishers are firing back. Those 95th. They have 2 bases. They get an extra 1, but they're firing into a garrison, so they take 2 away. So it's only 1, so they can't actually do any damage there. So there's no point really rolling that, is there? Right. So I've already done the ADC taskings and everything, just to move things along on this, so you're not watching me just rolling dice. The British got 3, the French got 4. The French have put forwards on these guys and a brigade reroll after last time, and they put a brigade reroll on these ones as well. We want to get them into the attack. Meanwhile, the British have put a brigade reroll on these, and also their artillery tasking over there. Not entirely sure what they're going to do with this yet. What I'm trying to do is trying to cause as many casualties on these support units and just try to isolate what's in there before they attack in. I don't want to attack just yet as it is. So we'll start with our French units. First ones here then. 1 or 2, they are not hesitant, so we can get rid of that. Brigade reroll. One's in the centre, not that this really matters much for them, they're okay. And then final one over here, these got the reroll 4, they are fine, so I will also get rid of that reroll there as well. Now the British ones over here, first ones, they're fine, they don't need their reroll. The middle ones, they are hesitant, so we'll just stick a hesitant unit marker on them. They didn't go for the reroll. And then finally on the flank, 5, they're fine as well. So mixed results all round. And then quickly let's see who gets the initiative. The British are rolling 4 dice because they've lost that strategic point, and they've also they've got 1 hesitant unit. So the French have rolled a 3, but the British have rolled a 4. So the British have actually taken the initiative back. Only just though, but they have got it. So just to give you a quick idea as to what has happened here, basically we've used the forward tasking for those guys. They got forward almost up onto the ridge, but not quite of course. And then meanwhile I also pushed forward the French unit in the middle there, and then finally on the right flank these guys as well also moved up. So there's no charges being declared, they've just moved forward. So it's now onto skirmisher fire. So I'm just going to do the skirmish fire first of all on the French right flank, so skirmish versus skirmish. I'm going to do both of them, but obviously in turn, just because there's no point doing it and then coming back. So the French skirmishers first of all, they're 5 dice, they have hit with 3, so that causes 1 damage on the British skirmishers. They will then obviously return fire with their full force of 5 dice, and they have also caused 1 damage on the French skirmishers as well. So an eye for an eye. Okay, over here in the centre we've got the the garrison, and we've also got these skirmishers here. These are all firing at those 95th rifles. So we'll start first of all with the ones on the left. So that's 1 damage straight away on those 95th. Then, oh, that shouldn't have rolled out there. Just put that back in. So that's 1 damage on them. And then we've got 5 dice firing from that garrison. Only 1 hit there, so no damage on them at all. So they will then fire back. They are going to fire at the skirmishers in the open there, so they're just firing with 3 dice. And that is 3 hits, so that causes another hit on those skirmishers, so they're going to take a base off. They've still got 3 bases left, they're just kind of split up at this point. And then our final skirmish fire is coming from the French voltigeurs here and also the 95th there behind them. So we're going to start with those voltigeurs. They're rolling 5 dice. So look what they do. Not a single hit amongst them. Meanwhile, the 95th, they are also rolling 5 dice. See if they can do better. They have scored 3 hits, which converts into 1. So there you go. That's the skirmish done. Then next up we have artillery. So we got the French artillery from down here. These are once again firing at the Scots over there. Meanwhile, the British artillery with their artillery assault are going to be firing at these as they come up that hill. Right, so let's start with the French artillery. They are once again firing at inferior battery. So that's a 7, so that is just 1 damage on those Scots. And then the British are firing back. I rolled the wrong dice for the French there. They also then get those 2 extra dice as well. So because the skirmishers are in front, they've got to fire, they're firing canister, they've got to fire at the skirmishers, but they're going to suffer bounce through fire on the units behind them. So that's going to give them 1 extra casualty dice just to roll against them. But we'll start first of all with their hits against those against the skirmishers. This is inferior battery fire, but they do get the 2 casualty dice for artillery assault. So they roll a 7, which is 1 damage on the skirmishers, and then they've also rolled a 4 and a 6, so that's actually 3 damage on those skirmishers. So that's wiped the skirmishers out. But they also then suffer bounce through onto these, and it's just 1 casualty dice. A 2, no effect, but they have cleared off the skirmishers from the front of that unit. And then finally we've only got 1 volley fire, which is going to be from this unit here at the British artillery. They are firing a weak volley because they're in column, so I just need 4 up. 2, no, that's a miss. There is no combat for this turn, so we will then end the turn and go on to the next one, turn 5. Okay, let me quickly show you the ADCs. The French only got 2 this turn, which they have put over here on a brigade order and also on an infantry assault order as well for these guys here. Meanwhile, the British only got 3, and they've actually put 2 on their artillery assault and also 1 on their brigade reroll there. So that's basically it. So I will go through and see who is hesitant and who isn't, and let's roll for those. Okay, I did the hesitancy tests just off camera. There was a couple of hesitant units, but they're the ones that had the brigade re-roll, so they were able to re-roll them. The British are still rolling their 3 dice. This is for initiative, whilst the French are only rolling 2. So the French have got 8, whereas the British have now got 6. So the French have the initiative once again. So we are now declaring a charge, and I'm going to be using, first of all, these guys here, the French. They are declaring a charge against the British up here on the top, and they are going to be using their infantry assault, which means they can then drag in these 2 as well with them. So first of all, we move up to 5 centimeters away from the enemy unit. They've got enough there. There's 20, so I'm just going to move them just up to in front of. These are the veterans. These are the ones that were the guard. This is going to then splinter off the British skirmishers, so they're just going to fall back. They're going to go straight through their own skirmishers. They'll drag these up with them, and also these guys as well. These are the ones that had 1 hit on them as well, so this is their charge going in with the infantry assault. So it means that now they've got 2 re-rolls if they need them for that infantry, for that charge itself. I have got some other charges to do, but we're going to deal with this one first and then move on to the others. So we've moved forward our charging unit. to contact with the British, 5 centimeters from them. The British have got support from here and also from here. The French have got their 2 supports as well, so they can have re-rolls. So the British are actually going to fire as the French come in. So basically, because they're firing at a charging unit, it's a charging infantry column at 5 centimeters, they get a +1 casualty dice, but they also get to fire a standard volley as well as the charges come in. So let's do that first of all. So that's an 8. They've caused 1 casualty anyway from the casualty dice, so that takes them straight up to 2, and then 2 on their 8 on their dice also gives them 2 more dice, and if they were elite it would cause a discipline test on the firers, but it's actually caused 4 damage on that French attacking unit, but nothing else. Now we then go on to the actual charge result itself. These are not going to fire, they're going to just use re-rolls for the actual charger, for the defender rather than anything else. So we've got 2 charge dice for the British, then 2 charge dice for the French as well. So what we've actually got is we've got a veteran unit attacking a lower grade unit, which is the line infantry. So that gives the French 1 re-roll. They've also got another re-roll here and another re-roll here because of their supports. So they've actually got 3 re-rolls if they want them. The British on the other hand have got 2 supports, so they've also got 2 re-rolls on their actual dice as well. So what we do is we roll these dice, see what the results are, see if we want any re-rolls off any of them. So let's have a look. We've got 1 and a 6 for the British and a 1 and a 2 for the French. So French are on 3 against British 1. So the British are going to use their 2 re-rolls, so we'll do them one at a time to see if they want to do them. First one is a 4. Do we keep that, or do we hope to get higher than that? Yes, we will do. Let's go for it. Might be high. Yes, it's a 6. It's a double 6. So that is the British final roll. The French on the other hand, they have 2 re-rolls, so they're actually just going to re-roll both of those. A 2 and a 1. They can't, literally almost can't get lower than that. You watch, double 1 coming up. They've got double 6 as well. So it is actually a draw, and this is basically close to combat. So what that means is lead charge unit closer to combat with the lead defending unit. That was literally it. That was that's the best they could probably, well, at that point that's the best that they could have got with all those re-rolls. So basically it moves into attack, and we then will go on to combat at the end of the turn. Then we have our next charge, which is an unsupported charge. Mind you, the British infantry there at the back can't support this one, so basically these guys have just gone forward, pushed through the skirmishers and moved into the attack as well. So that's these against the British there. So we are then going to, the British are going to fire at them. They don't get any bonuses on this this time, because they no, they're firing against a charging unit that is coming in as a column, so they get an extra bonus for that. So that is 1 hit, but they've also got a 3 on their standard volley, which is fire discipline, which means they lose fire discipline, so they are just carrying on firing. So they're firing and they're just going to keep blasting away. So basically we have no advantages or disadvantages, so it's literally a roll off at this point. Let's have a look. So we've got 4 for the French and a 7 for the British. That is a difference. That was I've knocked that over, but it was a 7. The difference there then being a 4, so it's basically a -4 for the French. So the attacker withdraws and rolls 1 casualty dice of casualties. Supports halt, and they also rolled, but there's no support, so basically it's a casualty dice for the French. They don't take a casualty, but they do withdraw, so that's not good for them, eh? So over here basically there's been no movement. They're just sitting looking at each other for the moment. French are waiting for an infantry assault asking. Otherwise the British have literally just moved forward 1 unit here to make up for support in case there is an attack at some point in the future, which I'm sure there will be. Right, well, first of all, now we've got our skirmish firing. So the French are taking the first ones. They've got 4 men, four bases firing with skirmish there. They've got 1, 2, 3, 4 hits, so that is translates into 2, so that reduces 1 base of British skirmishers immediately. They return fire with their now 3 bases. I'm just doing this over here on this side. quickly out of the way. So that's 2 hits, 3 hits, so that converts into 1 hit for them, for the French. So they're taking it quite well over there. Then we've got skirmishers here and here. I'm just going to do these quickly here. So we've got the French skirmishers firing at the 95th over there. They're firing with 3 dice, no hits. But then we do have the ones in the garrison firing. They have 5 dice and they've got just the 1 hit on those lads there. So that tips them up to 2. They are going to return fire at the ones in the fields, and they are firing there with 3 dice against those French skirmishers out in the field. Let's have a look. That is 1 hit on them. Then of course we have our artillery over here and here. So the French artillery is going to fire again at the Scots. They can just get them, and then the artillery assault is going to blast down here on these French. They're pretty close to being worn actually at this point. So we'll start with the French anyway. They are firing same again as before. It's an inferior battery fire. Let's see what we get. That is an 11. That's pretty good, that. 10 plus is 3 casualties and a discipline test. So they now have to do a discipline test on them. So let's just see. We roll this. They need a 7 or more to pass this because they are line. Ooh, double 1. That's not good. They have retreated. They retreat plus 4 casualty dice, and that's it. So let's just roll those casualty dice and let's see what they get for that. That is 1 extra hit, so that takes them up to 6. So they're almost worn at this point, and they have to retreat as well. Okay, I think I was reading this right. Due to the 6 casualties and being caused to retreat, and they couldn't get behind a formed unit, a formed friendly unit that wasn't retreating, they have now been dispersed. So this brigade is now faltering, so that's going to be not good for them on their next turn, I don't believe. But now we have our British artillery firing. They are firing with artillery assault as well. So this is a standard battery fire straight into these. There's no skirmishers in front of them this time, so they've got a 7 for that, and also 1 casualty as well, so that causes a further casualty immediately on that casualty dice anyway. Takes them up to 7. And also 7 to 8, another casualty, but plus 1 if it's canister. They're just outside of canister range, so that takes them up to 8. So they're still holding, but they are getting pretty badly battered. So we now got our charge. We've got this is a veteran unit charging a line unit, so the French have got 1 extra dice, so it's 6 dice versus 5 dice. And let's see how many hits we get. So the French have got 1, 2, 3 hits. The British have got 3 hits, so that's 3 against 3. This is a hard fought, and it is the higher troop grade wins. The losing infantry withdraw, so that's going to push those back through their unit behind them, taking their 3 casualties with them. The French Guard have basically pushed this unit back. It's unformed them. They have then fallen back through the unit behind them, which has also unformed them as well, which means that they're not going to be able to move in their next turn apart from reforming. So it's not looking good on the British right flank, but looking good for the French on their left flank. Okay, so I've tested for the ADCs. Unfortunately for the British, this is a start of turn 6. They only got 1, which they have to put on a brigade morale test, basically. So because they are faltering, it has to be sucked up by that. The French, they've got 3 out of their 4. So what they've actually done is they put an infantry assault on down here, but they've also added the CNC command as well. 2 here, and for this one they are using Post of Honour. So basically this attaches to the brigade that's not faltering. It automatically obeys orders. It can charge. It applies glory, which is also basically you promote a troop for a troop grade for any discipline tests, and you get a +1 combat dice to the lead unit in combat. It also gets lead unit recovers 1 casualty. The lead unit and supports charge with forwards move, or lead unit gains a charge reroll. So basically they are this is going to be they're going to charge with this one in a second once we've done the I've done the rolls for everybody else in the table. There is a hesitant unit of French in that built up area, but apart from that, everybody else got their chance to do something. So these are going to automatically pass their test. Meanwhile, we're going to have to do the falter test for these guys over here and then see what happens to them. So we're going to roll a dice, and basically whatever the roll is, these are line. If they get a 1, it's a sauve-qui-peut, if that is my French is good enough. Basically, people just disperse at that point. If they get a 2 or a 3, they start to waver, which means they're going to have to decide either they retreat or they take casualty dice or they become unformed, and a few other bits and pieces as well. Skirmish lines are reduced as well, that kind of thing. So let's just roll the dice. If they get a 4 or above, then they get a rally. So let's just see what we get. Okay, they've got a 2. That is them wavering because they are line. So it says any unit within 2 casualties of a disperse point will disperse immediately. They're not. They're both reasonably okay. All retreating units will make a retreat move and lose 4 casualties. Neither of them are retreating. All other units become unformed for 2 casualty dice casualties. Become unformed with 2 casualty dice casualties, or retreat with 4 casualty dice casualties, and that's a player's choice. Well, I'm going to make them both become unformed. Skirmish lines either currently at or reduced to 2 or less bases are removed from play. Well, no, they're not. They've still got 4 in their skirmish. Wavering units may fire using the hesitant rules. No movement or reforming is permitted in this turn except to retreat, as described above, and the brigade remains faltering. Right, so we're going to take those. We're going to take the 2 casualty dice with unformed. So the ones at the front, they've taken actually 2 casualties. That's not good. And the ones at the rear have taken 1 casualty. So I'll just get those marked up, and then we'll move on to the next phase. So this initiative roll is going to be quite important because the French really need to get in there first. Both are rolling 3 because the French have got 1 hesitant unit, whereas the British still have lost that tactical objective. So let's see what we got. So the British have got a 3, the French have got a 5, so the French take the initiative. So that means they're going to get their charge in before the guys get to reform, so that is going to be bad news, I think. So the French have gone in for the charge here. They are going to get fired at by the British. They are firing basically an inferior volley, but they get 1 casualty dice simply because they're being attacked, charged by a column. They get an inferior volley because they're unformed. So let's just see what we get. We've got a 3 on their fire, so they are actually fire discipline has been lost, but they have caused 1 casualty on that charging French unit. Okay, so because the British are unformed, they are shaken, so they roll 3 dice and they choose the lowest 2. The French are taking they have 2 for their attack dice, for their charge dice. They can also re-roll 1 as well for their support that is coming on that right hand side. So let's just see what we get. They may not need to get it. Well, let's see. Well, the British are using the 2 lowest. Well, they've got a 4. The French, on the other hand, have also got a 4. So we can ignore that 3. They could re-roll that. Let's go for it. Let's re-roll it. It's a 6. So that gives them 8 against 4, so it's a difference of 4. They've got a +4 basically. The attacker takes the ground, the defender retreats, rolls 4 casualty dice casualties. The supports withdraw and also roll 1 casualty dice casualties. So that means they are faltering, so they are withdrawing, which I think probably disperses them, but let's just see. They take 4 casualties anyway. 4 casualty. Oh, they've actually taken 4 casualty dice, so that's 4 hits on them, so that takes them up to 6 anyway, so they are now 1. The supports take 1 casualty dice. Let's have a look, see what it is. A 1. No, they don't take any more, but they have been battered there. Well, both of these have got to withdraw from where they are. They've got no support. The first one is withdrawing with retreating, so I think, to be honest, at this point that is just going to break and disperse because they've just been hit by that column coming in on them. Okay, I'm going to say over here that the unit that was retreating has actually just dispersed off the back of the table, because they would have had to form up behind an enemy unit that is not retreating. These ones are withdrawing, they're not retreating, but there's so little space at the back of that table that I think they are gone. So that's going to keep these will remain faltering at this point. So I think the French have pretty much smashed that left flank already without even having to close. So it was probably worthwhile chucking in those CNC orders, wasn't it? Do you know what, Steelers? I think I'm going to leave it there. I think the British line is pretty smashed up at this point. I know we didn't get any real attacks over on this side into the line here, but I'm just going to, I'm kind of halfway through turn 6, but I think there's going to be quite a bit of desultory firing through the rest of the turn, so I'm not going to play it out, and I'm going to say that the British forces probably will start to withdraw at this point. The reason being, these chaps over here smashed the British off the hill using their veterans. You know, that brigade is pretty much gone. It's got the artillery left, it's still got that unit there, but that will just be charged off the table. It's got a few skirmishers, but again, they will probably just dissolve anyway at some point. Over here, our British brigade in the centre here, these are almost dispersed. One more casualty and they will be dispersed. So, you know, a charge or an attack through them will break them up quite easily. They've also lost their tactical position here as well in the farmhouse. This is occupied by the French. The chance of them getting the French out of there, very, very low, I would have said. These are pretty smashed up. Not the ones so much in the farmhouse, but the other guys here are. But they are still relatively fresh compared to what is in front of them. There's only 2 battalions there, and against 3, which are, and then we've also over here, everybody is pretty much fresh apart from some of the skirmishers that are firing at one another. And I think, you know, again, there will be a couple more turns before the French are able to push the British off the hill up here. So, you know, once they can see that this flank is going to start to collapse, these would obviously move just down and roll up that flank, because again, they've got another fresh battalion over here that they can use, can just pile straight through the gun line and then straight down through the flanks of these guys here. So I think the British are in a very perilous position. If I were playing the British in this, I would definitely be thinking about my life choices and saying, yes, I think that's it, game over. So great fun. Now obviously, I'm going to say it again, I will reiterate it, I have most likely made 1,000 mistakes throughout of this, but it's all about the narrative, isn't it? I'm still learning the rules. There's still quite a lot in there to learn, and adding cavalry would have been a bit of a difficult one for me here, so I'm glad I didn't, and I'm glad I just went with the infantry attack. But I've really enjoyed this. I thought this was great, but I hope you have as well. There are going to be more General d'Armée 2 games in the future, because I've enjoyed it so much and I've enjoyed playing it so much, and this is why I've been painting all these epics as well. So if you enjoyed it, let me know. And I'll say, you can let me know in the comments if you want to where I've made mistakes, because I'm fairly sure that I have, and I'm going to reread the rules anyway after playing it. It's always the best way to do it, isn't it? But as I say, if you've enjoyed it, please join me in the next Storm of Steel video. Go and check out my Patreon and also channel memberships, and if you haven't already, definitely do subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next Storm of Steel video.